Hello, welcome back. Part 2 with Dean Pepall, former Radio Hallam, Radio Sheffield, current still Radio Derby. Can I use the word veteran broadcaster, Dean?
Well, all you've got to do is look at me and you can comfortably say veteran.
Comfortably say veteran.
When you start making references to the 80s, yes.
Yeah, all right. And I bristle at veteran. I told...
Well, you've got better reason to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I told somebody off recently who referred to me as veteran. Experience. Experience. Former manager, former chief executive, former Sheffield Wednesday goalkeeper, Manchester United, Sunderland, and has been through the mill in the game. Chris Turner. In this half, we're going to be reliving Dean and I's memories of Highbury 1983. If you're not old enough to have been around or remember what happened then, it's well worth reliving the atmosphere of Highbury and Sheffield Wednesday Brighton as we look ahead to big cup ties this week. But just before we do, towards the end of part 1, we'll talk about recruitment, and you were talking about Brentford's model and also Sheffield United's model. And there's a guy there that is so much key to the operation in terms of recruitment that you know particularly well, Paul Mitchell, who you worked with at Chesterfield. And in fact, the decline of Chesterfield's fortunes largely coincided with him leaving, didn't it, really?
Well, yeah, that's right. I mean, the successful seasons under Paul Cook, Paul gets all the accolades, and quite rightly so, but behind the scenes, Paul Mitchell as well was working extremely hard, and we had loan players in and young players being brought to the club, and I see it at Sheffield United. They signed a centre half whose name escapes me, probably because I'm not a United fan, from Brentford for £2 or £3 million, and it has been spotting, it has been looking at him, and when Chrissy wanted the centre half, he'd have told him who we should go for him, and bingo, is at Sheffield United, and it's been a great success. And I think every football club needs a top class recruitment guy, so that when the managers change, as they do quite often, the recruitment goes on and on and on, and I think it's a very, very important position. Even looking at the highest clubs, Manchester United, they're now deciding whether they need a director of football or not. Well, I think it's pretty evident that they do to be in the top echelons of European football, world football. Now, you need somebody who's got his finger on the pulse around the world.
So, I mean, Garry Monk, in his case, at Sheffield Wednesday, surely needs a figure of that sort alongside him, driving the football side of the business and enacting his plans, wouldn't you say?
One would have thought so. I mean, you build up a team at a football club from top down, a kind of confidence in that particular structure. You know who does what, who's responsible for what. You trust people when they come in with their recommendations. I think you've said, Chris, that Brentford actually have 2 directors of football, don't they? Which gives you some idea of how a successful small club, and Brentford are a small club by old traditions anyway, can have the success that they have done with the flow of players that's come through. It doesn't just happen. You've got to have people in place. You've got to have some structure there to make that happen. And Garry Monk is still waiting, I believe, for some support in some form or other, either higher up or to work with him on the first team squad and on recruitment as well.
And he certainly could do with a member of coaching team that of his choice, you would have thought. And that's not a slight on anybody who's currently there by any means. It's just what normally happens in
I can
football,
only speak from my experience of being in management, that you need your people around you to feel comfortable, and that's no disrespect to anybody at Sheffield Wednesday. Lee Bullen's been a great servant for the club. He's worked under various managers. He worked under Steve Bruce. Steve Bruce had his 2 lieutenants with him and Lee Bullen. So why hasn't Garry been able to do that? And I think that when you have people around that are on the same wavelength with you, and you can confide with them, and he's
a bit isolated, isn't he?
I think looking from the outside looking in, I think Garry is very isolated. The difficulty that Gary's got, and once again I can relate to myself, is that you can't come out in the press and say the real problems that may be there.
He's identified something we all agree with.
I can understand the problems he will have, because I've had them before at the same club, where people in the stands are right behind. They always want their favourite players to be in, but there's reasons why they're not.
And he sees training every day, which we don't, and that's a very valid point. When people criticise and supporters criticise, they are not seeing players day in and day out, and the manager is.
No, and all you get in the end is gossip and snippets. And in the days of social media, you get all kinds of stories that are out there, some of which are touching on the truth, some of which are nowhere near it. You don't want that going on behind you. You want positivity. You need, and the fans on side, trusting you, trusting the club as well to do the best thing for that football club. At the moment, it's extreme negativity, and it seems to be filtering all the way through to kick-off time. Sometimes the players deal with it better than on other days. But you can pick up the vibe of uncertainty at key times in certain matches, watching Sheffield Wednesday this season, and the crowd are the same as well. The atmosphere is dead.
Very subdued.
Wednesday, when it's rocking, Hillsborough, when it's rocking, is a fortress. It is a brilliant place to watch football and to be playing football. At the moment, it's not like that.
How difficult, as a former manager, Chris, is that balance between being honest, which football supporters always, they'll forgive somebody, more if they're honest. And Garry Monk has been especially honest about how he perceived the dressing room, what he perceived the problems to be, and what needed to be done about it. But has that backfired on him to a
I think slightly, yes, because he's and I think that comes from feeling the pressure yourself. When the team's not winning, or they've been in several good positions with only minutes to go, and somebody makes a bad mistake, and it costs them the draw or even the victory, and they end up losing. I mean, I was at the Stoke game away when we lost 3-2. I was commentating on that game, and they were well in command of the game in the second half, and then suddenly the game was whipped from underneath them, and 5-10 minutes after the game, the manager's got to stand there and face the questions, and that happened thereafter for 4 to 5 matches. And you've got to come up with something different to say, other than we're working on it Monday to Friday, we're trying to get there, I've got the injuries, or I've got this problem and that problem, and Stephen Fletcher's had an outstanding season, in my opinion, for the team, but he's been missing now for 2.5, 3 months, and we haven't replaced him, and we haven't got the players in the squad to replace him. And if you lose that worker up front, and that leader who wins most of the headers and sets up opportunities and was chipping in with goals, and you haven't got to replace him, there's a big gap. And as we're going on recruitment, we haven't got none, and then we wait all month till the last day of the month to sign Connor Wickham from Crystal Palace. Hopefully Connor can turn some form in from hereafter. But we shouldn't have to. We've wasted 4 weeks waiting for a striker to come along, and so on. And he must feel so lonely as with Garry.
Well, he snapped following the Wigan game, I think, which was a particularly woeful performance away from home, and talked about the too comfortable culture of some players in the dressing room.
It's a very, very difficult position for the manager, because the players who are there, who are under contract, and they're finishing at the end of the season, and they know that things haven't gone well for them personally. They know there's a strong chance that they're going to be moving on. So there then becomes, it's not 1 or 2 at Hillsborough. There's probably 8, 9, 10, 12 players.
I think 10 or 11 senior contracts are out.
Senior contracts are up. Now, so you have that, and then you have chat in the dressing room where somebody will be saying, "Oh, you're going so-and-so, aren't you, at the end of the season? And he's going so-and-so at the end of the season." And the manager's got to try and get that group of players at 3 o'clock to go out there and battle everything for 90 minutes. It's totally different. Well, I know we keep going on about it's totally different at the other side of the city. They're all scrambling around to re-sign longer-term contracts, and Chris is saying to them, "There's your offer, take it or leave it, or I'll bring somebody else in to replace you." Gary's not in that situation. He's in the totally opposite. He needs these players to play on a Saturday, and My thing to them is they've got to perform on Saturday, because we need some wins, because we have to think of the worst of our worst, that we do get this points deduction, we do go down there, and if that does happen, it's going to be very difficult to motivate these players.
Who've got to scrap.
They've
got to stay in the Championship.
So we need points before any decision is made on that.
Sheffield Wednesday v Derby, two clubs in the same or a similar boat.
Yeah.
You know, both needing points.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
and the worst thing, again, just referring to what a crowd can be at Hillsborough, is the fact that you've got a quiet crowd, and it's a diminishing crowd as well. Game after game, the numbers turning up are going down. Season ticket holders can't give their season tickets away to somebody else to come and have a look at a game. But at key times like this, people thinking about their football club and the future, they may feel down, they may feel negative, they may feel really annoyed at what's going on. But can you just turn that off at 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon and get behind those 11 wearing the blue and white striped shirts? It's difficult.
I think they will, because
they're aware of the threat.
They're aware of the threat.
It's a massive threat.
And you know, as a former player, when you go out there, there's nothing worse than when the crowd are quiet, like Dean says, or they're waiting for somebody to make a mistake to get onto the player, and then it affects all the other team. And as Dean says, when the crowd are behind you at Hillsborough, there's no better place to play at, and there's no better noise and everything else. And you know, we go right back to the first question about Manchester City. If we can put in a performance there and get a good result, an unbelievable result, that could set us the team forward. And if the result went right off the field, we could still get in the playoffs.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know,
that's how funny football is.
That could spark something.
You know?
And the frustrating thing is, we all know that Sheffield Wednesday do have some good players, don't we?
We've got some outstanding players on the day, and I think all these things we've talked about is affecting even the better players, the Barry Bannons of this world.
Yeah.
You know, experienced players.
Fletcher's going to be available.
Fletcher's coming back now. He's taken 2 or 3. Forestieri's coming back. You know, we need those players in the last 12, 14 games, whatever it is in the season, to put in a shift and produce performances and have some pride and win some games and either get us into the playoffs or keep us in that mid-table position if it were worse of a worse.
And the impact of people like that performing, showing the bit of magic, the bit of quality that they have, has a massive lift on the rest of the team as well. It inspires the others to join in. Your blood is pumping all of a sudden, rather than trying to hide somewhere on the pitch. You want to be part of it.
But let's also say they're one of the best away supported, if not the best away supported team in the division. Away from home, the crowd still go.
Different atmosphere,
3,000 and 4,000 crowds, like last Saturday at Birmingham. You know, they went from down there to up there to down there in the emotions by going from losing to winning, and then to get it pulled back at the last seconds of the game. But they'll be there again in the next away game. So performances away from home haven't been great, but they've picked up points.
Away support is phenomenal. Just finally on this sort of critical, pivotal time for Sheffield Wednesday, you know, the manager's inevitably got some people saying, "Oh, sack him," and that kind of thing.
Always get that,
which he will expect, which he's already said that he expects. From the club's point of view, to me, you've only got 2 options: either you solidly back him and make it clear, you know, that we're backing him, not players, we're backing him. Or you say we need a short-term firefighter, experienced guy till the end of the season.
But we don't need a firefighter if we don't get them points deducted.
True.
We'll be okay.
Yeah.
You know, so we don't need a firefighter. No. What we need is that to come out and say, Garry Monk's here. This is our manager. And then in the meantime, at the end of the season or starting now, is let the manager manage the club.
Yeah, well,
let him do the recruitment, let him do everything else, let him bring the staff in, and let's get the football club back on its feet again, because it can rise very, very quickly.
Yeah, well said, absolutely well said. You know, even from my impartial position, just playing devil's advocate from time to time, I totally agree with that, as my columns often say. Boring people, stuck record, in the repeating groove, like the days, Dean, when you and I used to spin vinyl, didn't we?
Absolutely.
We used to spin vinyl.
Vinyl's come back.
Well,
There it
vinyl's
is, yeah.
come back. We haven't.
You're in today.
I've still got the vinyl in the wardrobe at home. It'll be worth something some year, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, talking about reviving things, we're going to take us all back down memory lane now to 1983 at Highbury in April 1983. We're not going to show Brighton's winning goal from that Brighton-Sheffield Wednesday semi-final, but we will see the two other goals in that game, both memorable in different ways.
And now the tension mounts as the whistle goes, and Brighton, kicking from the left, begin the Highbury semi-final. Clearance by Pat Hurd. Was fouled by Mills. Distance is about the same, perhaps a few yards further out than that from which Mexon fired over a few moments ago. Back heel for Case, who can also strike them! What a superb goal from Jimmy Case! That must have been more than 35 yards, and it didn't give Boulder a sniff. Oh, they love him. How far out is that? All of 35 yards, swerving off the bar, 1-0. Just coming up to the quarter hour. Brighton, the all-important first strike. Marvellous goal from Jimmy Case. Referee from County Durham has been very firm and precise in his refereeing. Now Lions going in, the ball loose. Miročević, and the referee has given it. Ante Miročević gets the equaliser. Wednesday celebrate, and Brighton pegged back. Lions challenges. And the ball cannons loose to Miročević, who hammers it into the roof of the net.
Slightly chaotic, but a moment of euphoria, which kind of...
Just pause it there.
Yeah, which made the whole journey worthwhile. We were commentating on that, and we've missed out Michael Robinson's winner for Brighton for obvious reasons. But
It's funny, Wednesday started to come into it in the last half hour, certainly for 35 minutes. They weren't really at the races for up to that particular point, and Brighton deserved to be 1-0 up, but there were plenty of chances for Wednesday to have actually equalised after Michael Robinson's what turned out to be the winner at the end. But what a day that was. Yeah, I mean, from a point of view of somebody who's doing the commentary, this day and age you just go and you plug in and you do your piece. In those days we had a team of engineers running cables all over the place, trying to squeeze in to seats.
We got on air with 5 minutes to spare because I presented Sportacular from there, started at 1 o'clock, and at 5 to 1 Mick Sylvester, our engineer, was still fiddling around with wires under the desk.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Must have been a fair sight for those who were sitting a couple of rows behind what he was up to.
What was going on? Do you remember that game?
Well, I'd have been at Sunderland in '83. I'd have been playing that afternoon somewhere else in the country. But you know, the great days, semi-final days.
You'd have saved that one from Jimmy Case, wouldn't
To be fair, it did have a bit of bend on it, and Jimmy could hit the ball when he struck one. I mean, you know, the balls today, that would have probably gone wide today with the lightness of the balls that they are today. But you know, that was a super strike from him.
Jimmy Mealy was manager at Brighton at the time, and I remember him saying before the game, "Thank goodness we've got this semi-final between Brighton and Wednesday, because a couple of teams who've not had some success, one of them is going to go to Wembley and play an FA Cup final, and that is wonderful," he said. He was lucky to get his own team.
And Manchester United, and they lost after replay, but Smith must score. Gordon Smith, and he missed that big chance at the end. But you, Chris, you can tell how much winning a trophy can galvanise a football club. As it did for you during a promotion.
Yeah, I mean, the cup run in '91 is the start of the season, though. The manager, Ron Atkinson, we want to win promotion back to the top league, League One those days. We want to do well in the FA Cup and the League Cup if we can. Let's try and get to the later rounds. Want the reserves to do well in their league and the youth team to do well. Youth team got to do the FA Youth Cup final. Reserves won the Pontins League, which it never did ever since. First team won the promotion, and they won the League Cup. But that was a manager who had full control of his team, his recruitment, and his football club. But the run in the cup, as I said earlier today, that winning matches breeds confidence, breeds everything that teams and players need, and fans. Fans need lifts. Lifts generally come from. It's amazing how one result in a season can boost your season. Why I did it at Hartlepool once. We were bottom, a quick story, we were bottom of League 2. We had just lost 1-0 at Plymouth away from home, went to the bottom of League 2. I just got 3 or 4 new players in, went to Plymouth, lost narrowly 1-0 to Paul Sturrock's excellent team. We were playing Hull City at home on a Tuesday night. Hull City had beaten Cheltenham 3-0 at Boothbury Park in those days, and the Cheltenham manager Stevie Cottle ran me up on a Sunday. He says, "Chris, I know you've gone bottom of the league yesterday." He says, "You can beat Hull on Tuesday night." And that was the best phone call I ever had as a manager, I can always recall. Tuesday night, we're the bottom, Hull City are at the top of the league. We went and beat them 4-0. 4-0. That team went all the way to 7 minutes, virtually man for man, 7 minutes from Championship football. Yeah. When we lost to they lost to Sheffield Wednesday in the playoff final. 7 minutes when the penalty decision went Wednesday's way.
Yeah. Lost a man, didn't they?
And they nearly went all the way. That's with a good team going all the way through. But that one night on Tuesday night against Hull set the season off, and that's what one game, one result. Sheffield Wednesday, Manchester City could, bingo. Who knows?
Yeah. You've got to keep your fingers crossed. You just got to be positive.
You've got to be positive.
Yes,
absolutely. Got to remain positive.
That crowd is positive on Wednesday night. Who knows? Just who knows? But
because it's the old classic, nothing to lose. I mean, they can only lose.
But we said earlier that there are capable players in the team. They can play, and it could be that they go out there. Let's go for it. But if they did that every game, they would win the games.
But how do you play Manchester City? Do you go for it, or say we'll sit back, let them have the ball and try and break it?
Wigan 2 years ago beat Manchester City at Wigan 1-0. Yep, everything went for them in front of their goal defensively, but they had a go. They had a go at them, and they won 1-0. Who knows? But I think as a player that when you're going out there, you want to go and have a go. If you think you're going to sit back, I mean, you see the teams going to Anfield now and to City and sitting back and defending, still concede 2 or 3 goals late on. What was the point? Go and have a go.
And you're at home and you've got the crowd behind you.
You've got to go for it. What's the point of turning up otherwise? I mean, I think back to 1986 when Wednesday played Everton in the semi at Villa Park. Wednesday had a good team then, but Everton were the tops. They were the best team in the country at the time. Although they lost the final to Liverpool, they were regarded as the best team under Howard Kendall. But the atmosphere around that was, OK, Everton are best, but Wednesday have got a really good team. They could do this, they could get to the final. And they really gave it a good go. I mean, it was extra time when Graham Sharp got the winner, but it was a cracking game. Wednesday started off the stronger of the two as well. When Shutty got that equaliser as well, the roof went off of Villa Park, and it was a tremendous afternoon. That was, again, one of those tremendously disappointing days where you could see what could be achieved and you got so close to it, and once again you just lost by the narrowest of margins.
Maybe we're going to return to those days and there'll be somebody in 25, 30 years time in a television studio saying, do you remember that? do you remember 2020?
Would you I'm going to get you to remember 1983, not here. But there's a cassette of our commentary from that day in April 1983.
Where? Cassette?
It's somewhere in a box in my house.
I'd love to hear it.
And I thought I'd found it this morning because it's exactly the same label. It came from a batch of cassettes that were all bought at the same time. And I got it out of the box, so I thought I'll give it to Bigsy when I see him, and he can have a listen.
We're running out of time.
Dean Pepall interview with Dave D. Dozy, Beaky Mick and Titchin.
6 seconds. 6 seconds left. Dean, thanks very much.
Thanks, Alan.
Chris, thanks very much. John Pemberton, among guests next week. See you then.